This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. When you visit the doctor, you probably hand over your insurance, your ID, and contact details. It's just one of the many places that has your personal info. And if any of them accidentally expose it, you could be at risk for identity theft. LifeLock monitors millions of data points a second. If you become a victim, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year at lifelock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg,
Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia,
and essayist and commentator Eric Levine on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show. Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party is traveling this week. With us is Eric Levine, our co-host, distinguished attorney, commentator, and essayist. I am Judge Richard Weinberg. So, we have a very special guest today on the show, Senator Ashley Moody from the great state of Florida. Ashley and I are friends for a long, long time. I was one of her biggest supporters when she was running for the state attorney general spot and for re-election. She is a remarkable woman, a remarkable senator, member of the Judiciary Committee and Homeland Security in the United States Senate, former state judge, former Attorney General of Florida, federal prosecutor. Ashley, what haven't you done?
Well, you know, I still have a lot of energy to serve, and I am really enjoying this new role as a United States Senator, ensuring that our country remains the greatest country on the face of this earth and the greatest experiment of mankind. So I feel really honored and take on the responsibility with a lot of enthusiasm moving into it. I've been in office now about 8 months, took over for Marco Rubio when he became Secretary of State. So always an honor to join you, and I am so glad that you have joined this new show and glad to be one of your guests.
Well, let me ask you this question. So you go from being a state attorney general, being elected to that statewide office twice, and then because of Secretary Rubio's appointment from the Senate to the cabinet of President Trump, you had to make a big adjustment. You had to go from being a statewide official in Florida to being a United States Senator, part of that very exclusive club of 100. What do you see as the differences in how you take care of each of those jobs?
Well, when people would ask me as the Attorney General, most people think that the Attorney General's role, no matter what state you come from, and they're all different, it's based on what each state sets out in terms of scopes of responsibility. In Florida, as you know, the Attorney General is an elected cabinet member, one of 3 cabinet members in addition to the governor that runs state affairs in Florida. And, you know, a lot of my work was working with law enforcement on cases. I oversaw the statewide prosecutor and we did criminal appeals. So criminal justice was a large part of that. But there were so many other responsibilities. And so when I would summarize that for folks, I would say, look, you know, boil it down. There's really 3 things we do. We protect our citizens. We protect the autonomy of the state. And we protect our citizens' rights. But a lot of the part of protecting the autonomy of our state, I meant that in the sense that I was always trying to keep Washington out of Florida's ability to lead on policy the way we saw fit. And as you know, we worked very hard to promote common sense policies and respecting at all times the rights of our citizens. And that really shone through during COVID. And we, while trying very hard to protect the health, safety, and welfare of our people, we never made decisions that worked against their rights that were guaranteed them in the Constitution. So we were one of those states that stayed open, schools stayed open, businesses stayed open. We fought very hard. I led very hard in litigation to keep our state free, and we won.
And now you're a senator. Now you're a senator.
I'm a senator.
And what's
moving from, you know, that experience of really battling Washington and some of these bureaucratic agencies that want to, you know, get into every aspect of your life, the subject matter part of the job moving into the Senate now the oversight role of that, overseeing agencies, creating good common sense policies, good conservative policies that played out very successfully in my home state of Florida, now on a national footprint, and we've already made some successes. The substantive work has just been thrilling to be on the policy side, coming from such a great state. The harder part, as you know, I am also a wife to a law enforcement officer, a mother who still has a kid in school. So the logistical part of being in Washington and getting home to do those jobs, those incredibly first priority jobs in my life, that has been the most difficult part of it. But I'm really enjoying the job and serving the American people, and specifically the state of Florida.
Eric.
So, Senator, thank you for being with us. It's a pleasure to have you. I want to pick up on this concept of federalism that you were discussing, protecting our citizens, protecting states' rights, and keeping Washington out. I'm in Washington, D.C. today on business, and I'm actually calling into the show. And I've been coming to D.C. fairly regularly, and I have to say I've seen quite a bit of difference in terms of homelessness and crime, the cleanliness. The city just seems to be in a much better spot since President Trump has deployed some federal agents, military, to the streets of D.C. to make it safer and cleaner. But D.C., of course, is the district. It's a federally run area. The president has talked about deploying troops to cities like Chicago or New York or other cities around the country. What is your view of that as a former attorney general, someone who advocates for a federal type of government? What's your reaction to the president's statements there?
That's a great question. And I want to start with when I was the attorney general during the first Trump administration, I was the only attorney general asked to serve on the Presidential Commission on the Administration of Justice. And one of the things that we examined was this phenomenon of rogue prosecutors. And when I use that term, I mean those that are getting elected and because of their personal beliefs, they don't enforce for certain laws, and the affect that was having in so many cities and states around the nation. And we've seen that play out because when the COVID period hit and the riots started and the lawlessness really started taking fire, almost with the enthusiasm and support of so many governors and city leaders, it really put on display the insanity and the lack of truly understanding of criminal justice by so many of these leaders around our nation. And you're seeing the numbers play out. So take Memphis, for example. That was one of the cities that the president just announced he really wants to help clean up. I think the murder rate now, you have a greater likelihood of being murdered in Memphis than you do in Mexico City. I mean, it's unbelievable what's happened in that city. And I remember folks asking me when we were coming into this new administration, what are some of the things that the federal government could do to help where you have some of these areas that are just really the most vulnerable communities are the ones that sometimes suffer the most on some of these policies, which is really remarkable because they're the same communities that some of these leaders win by saying they want to help. And so I have always said that you should surge federal resources, especially in places where you may not have an executive state branch or city executive that is firmly behind law enforcement and the rule of law. And if you look at the county in which Memphis is in, that is one of those counties that aggressively embraced criminal justice reform. I think their murder rate went up almost 40-50% when they fully embraced some of these insane policies like, no cash bail, some of these other things that we've really identified. And we did a study on some of these things in Florida and did exactly the opposite that some of these cities and states were doing. So when others were defunding the police, we were increasing it. When others were decriminalizing crime, we were making sure that we were enforcing the rule of law. When others were supporting rogue prosecutors, our governor removed them. When others were not treating juveniles like criminals for very, very serious violent offenses, we were strengthening our ability to do more to hold them accountable. And so, we have done exactly the opposite. So where you're seeing these crime rates explode it's very easy to identify, and we studied this with the chamber and our sheriff's organization in Florida. It's very easy to identify the root causes of that, even though they will espouse to say that helps reduce crime. It does not. And it shows a reflection of people that are more interested in destabilizing communities than those that are interested in making sure they're doing what government should do and what was assured when our government was set up, and that is protecting the safety of people. And so I am proud of what we accomplished in Florida, what we're still pushing in Florida. It's a lot of the reason a lot of people are moving to Florida, because they know we have an understanding fundamentally of what government should and shouldn't be. But I think what President Trump is doing in terms of surging federal resources in some of these areas, I am grateful to him, because it saddened me to see that some of these communities that were hit were the very ones that these leaders were professing to protect, and they were in fact destabilizing and worsening the crime in some of these areas.
And, you know, Ashley, you're on two very, very important committees. You're on Judiciary and you're on Homeland Security. And two of my biggest concerns during the Biden years, and we're going to pay this price for many years to come, with open borders without the vetting about who's coming in. I think they approximate the numbers to be about 10 million people came in. We don't know who they are and where they went. And you had all kinds of problems with that, and continue to have that problem because of cartels and gangs and human trafficking and fentanyl. That's a big issue for me. The other big issue is the Democrats in the Senate under Schumer, who's regrettably our U.S. Senator here in New York that Eric and I have to live with, is he was stymieing the ability to make the...
Or die with if Mamdani becomes mayor.
Right.
As American Jews.
Right. But I'm saying it's so important that, and I think Senator Thune has exactly right, you have to modify the rules in the Senate. You have to start making sure that the federal prosecutors have their hearings and get confirmed. The federal judges have their hearings and get confirmed. And you're part of that leadership, aren't you?
Yeah, look, so, going to your first point, I think the obstruction behavior that we're seeing from the Democrats is historic. We've never seen anything like it. Before this administration, by this point in time, most of the civil nominees had been confirmed through voice vote or unanimous consent. I mean, it's really untenable to have a working nation when a president has the obstruction that they've had in terms of the function of the Senate, which is to advise and consent on these appointments. And if they can't even get a vote, we are not fulfilling our duty. And so, Leader Thune has been very clear. We need to return to a point where the Senate is functioning, and, to couch it as some nuclear change is a misnomer. Really, we're just trying to move forward and get votes on some of these
You're going back to the old rules, aren't you?
We're going back to how it was used to done, right. and we're not even taking away the time for debate. We're just doing it in block. They weren't even using the time for debate. They just wanted to block for the sake of blocking. And, I commend Leader Thune. He has been patient. He keeps reaching out, wants to include them in how we're proceeding. But at some point, we owe a duty to this nation and to the Constitution, really, in the way that government was supposed to function, especially the Senate, and that very important role of ours. And so we are doing that to move this country forward. And the only reason President Trump is successful is because he has put in a team to help him. He could not do everything by himself. He is human. And he has put in this great team that thinks outside the box, is willing to just roll up their sleeves and get to work on some of the destruction and damage that the last administration caused. And I really don't use those terms lightly. I'm not embellishing. You are right. The numbers I have seen are anywhere from 11 to 20 million people, mostly unvetted, were able to flood into this country. That is more than, if you take the conservative number at 11 million, that is more than the population of 42 of our states. There is absolutely no way, with our current infrastructure, with our resources, with our ability to deal with the education, health, and welfare of all these people coming in so fast, that we could do so in a way that was stable in these communities. I mean, look at Massachusetts. They had to declare an emergency, a man-made emergency, because of some of their policies and what they were doing to this nation and specifically to the state by some of those decisions. And what those states were doing, that were declaring themselves sanctuary states and cities. And I would say that they became sanctuary for criminals in many of these instances, because we know so many dangerous people flooded into this nation. They then wanted the rest of the nation, even those of us that were following the law, to bail them out with more money. And that's what these poorly run democratic states and cities do. They implement their policies that are just, there is absolutely no way that you can keep pace with the cost and destruction of some of these policies. You're seeing it in New York. And the only thing they know to do is to make the bad decisions and then ask for a bailout. Trust me, that is what will happen and did happen during the last administration when Biden was in office. In New York, they declared themselves some, sanctuary city. Send everyone here. We've got this. Then they realized the mess they were in and kept begging for more federal money to bail them out. And you think that's going to get better and not worse with this new candidate that everybody expects is on a track to win there? It'll get worse. The American people are not going to put up with that for long. And, it's going to implode upon itself in terms of the policy decisions that we expect he will make along the way. And so, my job here as a senator, truly, I expect that what we've been able to accomplish in Florida, that common sense policy, conservative policy, showed success in a very short period of time when the other states were doing exactly the opposite. And you saw what happened there. Florida's on fire. We're breaking every single record. Net in migration, new business formation. We're breaking tourism records. We are blowing it out of the water in education. I mean, we have shown, if you stay true to policy that will work, the people will go to where success and protect prosperity and safety and protection of their rights is provided. And that is Florida. And that is why wherever I go in this country, many people that I'm meeting with are either Florida residents or becoming Florida residents. And I know a lot of New Yorkers, if the election goes in New York the way we expect it will, not just the cops will be flooding to Florida. It's going to be a lot more of those that pay the taxes, which is just going to make matters worse.
Eric, last conversation with Senator Moody.
Sure. I mean, I could not agree with you more, Senator, about the cause of the explosion of crime in our country from progressive policies and open borders and what it's led to. On our show last week, we went through the statistic that since 9/11 through the end of 2024, if you compare the number of people who were shot and killed in the city of Chicago with the number of American military who have been involved in the war against terror during that same period of time, more people have been shot and killed in Chicago than have been shot and killed in the military since that time period by almost twofold. So it's really quite a remarkable statistic, and I'm not sure what we do about it in a red state like Illinois, where you have a
blue state, a blue
mayor
state,
and a blue state. Sorry, you have a Democratic mayor and a Democratic governor, particularly one that wants to run for president. But I would just shift gears for 1 second. One of the great pleasures that you have as a senator is to hold hearings and ask questions of folks. And you had an interesting series of questions with Dr. Menares, the former head of the CDC, and she was testifying on the Hill regarding her experience at CDC under RFK. I was wondering if you could just share with our listeners your exchange with her and what you found particularly peculiar about some of her responses.
Yeah, it was emblematic, really, of our role as senators and the important responsibility of oversight. And many times when we conduct these hearings, the things that we want to cover, of course, I had we are constrained by time, and of course, I had numerous items I wanted to cover. But sometimes things play out or information comes out that you really have to stop and address. And I was very surprised, actually. I was not expecting her to answer, but she, there's some concern and some of the nuances and how she left the CDC almost seemed like it was setting it up for this grand departure. almost a show of it. And it was remarkable that she showed up to a hearing yesterday with, there's no other way to describe it than anti-Trump lawyers that are taking on clients to go after this administration. And it was very clear that they were aiding in her testimony, passing notes, whispering in her ear the whole time. And when I simply asked for her to introduce what lawyers were there assisting with testimony, and Judge, you know this, we were both judges. I mean, that's not uncommon. If a lawyer is there in a
absolutely
place helping a client,
right question.
Putting their name on the record is just a commonplace. I was shocked that she refused to answer, and I asked over and over. And I assured her this is not an uncommon thing. I mean, I'm new here to the Senate, but telling people who is there assisting with testimony is not a strange request. And she refused to do it multiple times. And it really gave me pause because, she kept talking about her departure as this abrupt departure. But yet she had met with these lawyers before and it wouldn't give their names. It led to surmise there may be more going on than what was presented. And it was unexpected. I mean, just like my other hearing yesterday in judiciary when they said that one of the witnesses that had been there for the overwhelming of the border during the Biden administration, as one judge, when we won in court in Florida, said that the Biden administration had turned the border into nothing more than a line in the sand, he was explaining how hard this was and fully understood that these children had been lost. In Florida, we did a grand jury and found that tens of thousands of children had been just misplaced by the Biden administration. And this witness came out and said, yeah, we got that grand jury report from Florida. When I got in and started helping the Trump administration, we realized, we dug in, that the Biden administration had gotten that report. They were ordered to find out if that was true. They did verify that it was true, and then they buried it and did nothing with it. And when we got into office, we were, horrified to learn that not only did they confirm that the grand jury report that we did in Florida when I was Attorney General was accurate, that they were losing children, that they did nothing on that. That was more information that came up at that hearing yesterday. I was shocked. I was actively involved with that, kept pleading with them to do more based on our findings. And I was shocked to learn, as was the rest of the committee, that they did in fact confirm it, verify it, and make the conscious decision to do nothing. It was astounding. And it just goes to show the importance of oversight by the United States Senate and why it's so important for a people's government.
And, Senator, we're going to have to conclude and let you go back to the work of the Senate and the people of the United States. But on behalf of Eric Levine and myself, I want to tell you what a great pleasure it is to have you on the show. We want to have you back more often. Whenever there are important topics that you're working on that you want to be heard on that topic, we're delighted to have you. The people of the United States, and certainly the people of Florida, are very fortunate indeed to have somebody of your ability, integrity, experience, character as their United States Senator. I understand you're running for re-election next year in 2026. Is there a funding page that we can tell our audience about?
AshleyMoody.com. Thank you so much. We are very excited about the election, and thank you very much for your kind words. I wake up every day and ask myself, what can I do to serve Florida and to make this country stronger? And I'm very honored that you would invite me on to talk about that. So thank you both very much.
Thank you, Senator. This is Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg. That's me. Noted commentator and essayist Eric Levine. Jesse Garcia is traveling today. We've just concluded with Senator Ashley Moody, one of the great United States senators, one of the great Americans that we have serving us in Washington. And Eric and I are delighted to have her with us. We wish her well in our efforts to protect America. We'll be taking a short break. We'll be back in about a few moments with more interesting and important conversation.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg,
Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia,
and essayist and commentator Eric Levine on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This shrimp and coconut sauce is divine. What's your secret?
Goya coconut milk.
How does it taste so good?
It's all in that real coconut flavor and that rich, creamy texture.
What about thickeners and added sugars?
None. Just smooth, coconutty goodness.
What can I make with it?
From curries to sweet treats like coconut flan, the possibilities are endless.
Goya coconut milk. Take your cooking to the next level. No question about it. Find it in the Goya section of your local grocery store. If it's Goya, it has to be good.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with noted attorney, commentator, essayist Eric Levine. Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party is traveling today. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. In our first segment, we were honored and privileged to have a good friend of mine and Eric Levine's, Senator Ashley Moody of great state of Florida, a member of the Homeland Security Committee, the Judiciary Committee, former State Attorney General of Florida, former state judge in Florida, and former federal prosecutor, a wonderful woman, a great patriot. I'm delighted to have Ashley Moody, my friend, Judge Ashley Moody, now United States Senator Moody, on the show with us. So, Eric, I want to begin this second segment with something that and I know as soon as I say it, you're going to challenge me on this, even though I have an affidavit sitting right here from your wife. I know you have a counter affidavit from my wife.
Yes, I was about to say, your wife has told me that you're really a Republican. Well, go ahead.
Okay. I'm what they're now been called a Democrat name only, a dino.
Yes.
But I still hope against all the empirical evidence that we can save the Democratic Party and make it a common sense, normal, moderate party again. The evidence, by the way, is piling up against me and my hopes. So you have a character named Mondami, and this Mondami character is running for mayor of the city of New York, and he's running against a divided field, which includes the incumbent mayor, Eric Adams, the former governor, Andrew Cuomo, and talk show host and founder of the Guardian Angels, Curtis Sliwa. And the prospects there with a divided opposition are not very, very good to stopping Mondami. Now, Mondami is a socialist, and maybe worse. He's certainly an anti-Semite and anti-Israel, and maybe worse. He supports the Intifada, has never rejected it. His father has spoken how he supports suicide bombers, how wonderful that is. He wants to defund the police. He thinks capitalism is evil. He wants to raise taxes. He wants to give free stuff away. He has no practical experience in this life. He's never run anything. An assembly staff is probably no more than 5 people on the staff. He is literally a little rich kid who's playing at politics and government, comes from a very substantial family. Mother is a Hollywood producer, has a big cash flow of contributions from the Hollywood crowd, the out-of-state crowd, the very far left crowd, the Islamist crowd. I've described him as a clear and present danger to the city of New York. And so, lo and behold, I was waiting for some of the common sense centrist Democrats, such as myself and Governor David Paterson, who speak up against this character, Mondami. Well, I was waiting for them to do the right thing and to say, do not vote for them. He does not represent the views, the values, and the concerns of the people in the Democratic Party. And lo and behold, Kathy Hochul, the governor of the state of New York, has now endorsed him, followed by the Speaker of the State Assembly, Carl Hastie, who's now endorsed him. And you can reasonably be assured that if those two people have cleared the path and legitimized the normalcy of this kind of candidate in the Democratic Party, that others will follow. And I'm deeply, deeply troubled about this. I think, and I don't think I'm exaggerating, Eric, when I say this, when you support a candidate, you're buying into their values, their agenda, their concerns, their wish list. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think you're too late. I don't think there is a Democratic Party to save. It is now the Democratic Socialists of America Party. And the Hochul endorsement demonstrates that. she wasn't endorsing Mamdani necessarily because she believes in him or not believes in him. She was endorsing him because he owns her. She endorsed him because she thinks she needs him and other democratic socialists, other communists, and Jew haters to support her when she runs for re-election for governor next year. She's very concerned about being primaried from the radical left, the socialist left, by most likely her lieutenant governor.
Delgado.
And she was hoping to get help from Mamdani to stop Delgado from primarying her. But when she asked Mamdani for his endorsement, he said no, he would not endorse her yet, which further demonstrates that he owns her. And what it means, and the other point was that assuming she made it to the general election, if you talk to Lee Zeldin, he'll tell you he needed 35% of the New York City vote in order to win when he ran for governor.
That's right. I remember him saying that.
Right. So he only got 30%, unfortunately. So that 5 points was the difference between his victory as governor and Hochul winning. So Hochul's concerned that if someone like Elise Stefanik, who we all pray runs, because I think she can win, it would be obviously a far superior governor than Hochul. She's hoping that when she runs in the general, that Mamdani will help rally the troops and help get her Democratic votes in New York City, which is so critical.
Yeah,
to
Hochul's be relying on that left wing group,
which means so all these people that are so intelligent and erudite and just understand how the mayor works and the governor works, that he can't raise taxes, he can't do this or that because he needs the governor or he needs the state assembly. He owns her. She needs him more than he needs. He's going to win without her, but she can't win without him. So after he becomes mayor, he's going to go to her and say, you want my support? Raise taxes. Make buses free. Make the subway free. Defund the police. All these, rent control for everyone. All these crazy communist policies that he wants to adopt, she will be forced to go along with or lose. It's okay to persecute the Jews. It's okay to change the definition of anti-Semitism, to do away with the International Holocaust Remembrance Association's definition of anti-Semitism and mainstream anti-Semitism and teach anti-Semitism and say it's okay to globalize the Intifada, okay to say that Israel has no right to exist. And in order for her to say no, she's going to have a backbone. She's going to have a spine. She's going to have a moral compass.
And by the way, she hasn't shown it previously.
No, exactly. So what this craven endorsement demonstrates is not only is that she's intellectually limited and utterly incompetent, she's morally bankrupt. But let's just go through some of the things she said in her endorsement in the New York Times. She said, quote, "In the past few months, I've had frank conversations with him," meaning Mamdani. "We've had our disagreements." She won't tell us what they are, but they've had disagreements. "But in our conversations, I heard a leader who shares my commitment to New York, where children can grow up safe in their neighborhoods, but he wants to defund the police. He thinks they're wicked."
And he said so. And they're evil. He said they're evil. He said
they're evil. And the communities that will suffer most, of course, are the communities, minority communities, where the crime is highest, and where opportunity is within reach for every family. The guy is a communist. It has failed everywhere in the world: the Soviet Union, Cuba, Venezuela, China, North Korea. You name it, wherever it's been tried, it has failed. It has not made anything safe, and it has not made. Has not given broad opportunity to anyone.
And it's a vehicle. It's a vehicle of oppression. It's a vehicle of oppression.
Exactly. The only policies that have brought opportunity is the American policy of equality of opportunity, capitalism, and individual justice, individual freedoms, and religious freedoms. That's the American dream. That's what's made America successful.
And real freedom real freedom of speech, Eric.
Exactly. True freedom of speech. So she goes on to say, "I also shared with him my priorities, making it very clear that our police officers should have every resource to keep our streets and subways safe." Oh, really? And you were satisfied with his answers? I mean, she said to him, "You need to apologize." But he hasn't apologized. "I urged him to ensure there is strong leadership at the helm of the NYPD, and he agreed." What does that mean? Strong leadership, but to lead in what direction? To lead where? He's going to put in place a police commissioner that decriminalizes crime, that will not enforce crime, that will protect criminals. That's who will be his police commissioner. But I am sure they will exercise strong leadership. She goes on to say, we discussed the need to combat the rise of anti-Semitism, and urgently and unequivocally. I've been glad to see he met with Jewish leaders across the city, listening and addressing their concerns directly. You've got to be kidding me. You have got to be kidding me. This guy's definition of listening is to say, when people say globalize the Intifada, which means kill Jews, it means exterminate Jews, it means find Jews and kill them, it means destroy the Jewish state of Israel. That's what it means. Period. End of sentence. So he listens to them, and then hasn't changed at all. His response is, those aren't terms that I use. And I discourage other people
and
from
what does that
saying
And what does
terms.
that mean? He doesn't have to use the term. All he has to do is follow the policy.
Right. It's like saying to Goebbels and Hitler, just don't say final solution, but it's okay to do it.
Exactly.
That's all that means. That's all that means. And this fool that we have for a governor, that was enough for her. I look forward to working together to make sure New Yorkers of all faiths feel safe and welcome in New York City. Hello, I'm an American Jew. I've spent my entire life in the state of New York, and I do not feel safe. And I will feel unsafer if Mamdani is mayor, and you have done nothing to assure me that anything will be different. That's the reality. And I am not alone.
No, and
she goes on to say,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Eric.
If you have something on that point, I was going to move to the next point in her.
No, I mean, but if you don't feel safe, and I don't feel safe, and you and I are fairly successful people, and have roles as opinion leaders, and are deeply involved in making the city and the state of New York a better place. If we're looking about this and saying we're not safe and we're worried about our children, our grandchildren, and people like us say, it's time to get out of here, what happens to the city and state of New York?
Exactly. Look, Jews aren't going to be the only ones leaving. Cops will be leaving. The tax base will be leaving. Mamdani is on record as supporting the 10 cities of Columbia. Students heckling and attacking Jews. He supports that. And Jews are supposed to feel safe because Kathy Hochul decided he listened to someone. Who did they listen to? Brad Ladner? Jerry Nadler? His fellow progressives on the radical left? Look, Trotsky and Marx were Jews too. Were the Jews safe in the Soviet Union? Of course not. She goes on to say, I emphasize to him my belief in keeping and attracting business so that New York remains the center of the global economy and we create even more good-paying jobs for our residents. Attracting business. The guy wants to raise taxes. He sees businesses that make a profit as enemies, as cash cows to milk. These businesses are going to be leaving in throngs.
And he wants to raise the minimum wage to $30 an hour, which means that businesses won't be able to survive.
Yeah, well, small businesses like bodegas, McDonald's, all the franchises. I'm not talking about McDonald's writ large, but any small business in New York, they cannot afford to pay a $30 an hour wage. So they will do one of two things. They'll either lay people off, in which case their salaries will be zero. That's always their true minimum wage. Or they will leave. Or they will just go out of business and they will be on the dole because they're unemployed. I draw upon my personal experiences while considering a possible endorsement. Well, man, that must have been some life. When I walk the streets, attend religious services, or ride the subway, I meet New Yorkers who love their city, but despite hard work, feel they can't afford to live and thrive there. So what do you want to do? You want to create a Moscow on the Hudson, a Pyongyang on the Hudson, a Caracas on the Hudson, a Havana on the Hudson? This is what's going to make everyone's experiences better. This is how people are going to afford it. You have got to be kidding me. I know what that struggle feels like. My parents started married life in a trailer park outside Buffalo. That's the American dream. They didn't get out of that trailer park in Buffalo because of communism or because of anti-Semitism or because taxes on the wealthy went up. They got out of that trailer park, Governor Hochul, because of the American opportunities, the opportunities that this country presented. Equal opportunity, not equity. Equal justice under the law, not social justice. All social justice is retribution. Social justice is another way of saying we're going to get the guys that did this to us. And diversity, equity, inclusion. There's no diversity. It's diversity in everything but thought. Equity means guaranteed equal outcomes, not equal opportunities. And in order to have a guaranteed equal outcome, you must coercively take from one group and give to another group, irrespective of whether another group does. You are going to, and then you have oppressors and oppressed. And if you are an oppressor, like whites, Jews are whites, it is okay for the oppressed, minority communities, Palestinians, it is okay for them to rise up and do whatever they want to do by any means necessary.
By the way, what does by any means necessary mean?
Well,
it means by any means they deem necessary, including political violence.
Right. Well, that's what globalized the Intifada means. From the river to the sea means kill Jews. Let's remember who Mamdani is. He supports the Muslim Brotherhood, which is a terrorist organization. He started a chapter of the Students for Justice in Palestine at Bowdoin College when he was there, which advocates for the destruction of the Jewish state, supports the Muslim Brotherhood, which is a terrorist organization.
And don't forget...
And advocates for the killing of Jews wherever they are.
And it's bigger than the Jews, but much bigger than Jews, because he also pals around with the people who say that 9/11 was justified. That's who his friends are.
Yeah, he goes on their talk shows. Yeah, and also, I mean, the SJP folks also call into question whether that America has and Canada have rights to exist.
Well,
they think that we are illegitimate countries because we are built on the back of Native Americans, and therefore America and Canada have no right to exist.
So therefore,
this is the guy that Kathy Hochul is endorsing. But this is the guy that owns Kathy Hochul.
Agreed. All right, and we have to take a break. Hold that thought, Eric. We'll be back in a moment. This is Let the Record Show. Chairman Jesse Garcia is traveling today. I'm with Eric Levine, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Please stay with us. We'll be back in about a few moments for our final segment with more interesting and important conversation.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg,
Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia,
and essayist and commentator Eric Levine on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We are back on Let the Record Show. Chairman Jesse Garcia, the Republican Party, is traveling today. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. With me is my other esteemed co-host, Eric Levine, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist. Eric, you had a couple of final thoughts about our esteemed governor, Kathy Hochul. What were they?
So it's just really one last point. In her endorsement of Mamdani, she makes the point that, quote, New York needs leaders who will put aside differences, stand up and fight back against Mr. Trump. Well,
good luck with that.
Good luck. Well, first of all, good luck with that. But I want to know how New York City, or New York State for that matter, but let's take New York City, how it functions without federal money. You may hate Donald Trump. You may think he's the most horrible person on the planet. But I have news for you. He's president, the duly elected, democratically elected president of the United States, and he's here for another 3.5 years. And New York City cannot function without his support. They're rebuilding Penn Station. Who's going to rebuild Penn Station?
And Trump wants to help, by the way. He loves New York. Exactly. He's committed to help.
But in Hochul world, in Mamdani commie world, we need to fight Donald Trump. We need to make it sure we don't get federal funds. The city will die. The state will die. This is who Hochul is supporting. It makes no sense. That was just my last point. Why you want to make an enemy of the president of the United States? Beyond my comprehension. I don't care what your party is.
It's all about opportunistic politics, Eric.
Yeah.
Listen, the woman has no moral compass. She has no great intellectual commitment. She has no personal strength to fight against this tide of Islamist fascism, against this tide of violent political culture, against the whole issue of socialism/Marxism. She will not be the one to do the fight. She was rolled constantly during the term that she's holding now. And earlier, she couldn't get her agenda through. She didn't accomplish any of her promises to clean up the bad laws that the radical left pushed through the state legislature. The numbers are staggering, by the way, with respect to the increase in crime by juveniles since the left wing of the Democratic Party and left-wing governors, including Andrew Cuomo and Hochul, allowed it to happen to raise the age law, which means that you're not holding these young punks, these killers, these violent actors who are used by the cartels and the gangs, you're not holding them accountable. You're giving them a free pass. It's a very dangerous situation.
Look, society has made them do this. It's society's fault. If society were kinder and more gentle and different policies, we wouldn't have any of these crimes.
No, you're right. If we were more tolerant of diversity, everybody's entitled to a free robbery, a free mugging, a free sexual abuse, a free rape, a free attempted murder.
All those items that's out there in the stores, they're public property. Just go steal them.
You know, there's a famous anarchist. His name was Proudhon. He said property is theft. So these guys believe that property is theft. And they also believe, and by the way, the great expert on housing, who's Mondami's advisor, she believes that if you own a home, it's an example, it's a metaphor for white privilege. So therefore, you shouldn't be able to own your own apartment or your own home. That's a great idea, too.
Well, the Democratic Socialists also think that marriage is the same thing as prostitution. One of the reasons why he supports the legalization of prostitution is because since marriage is prostitution, it's just maybe at a different price, then why shouldn't all prostitution be legal? That's the mindset of these people.
Well, which is an interesting and sad segue into what I want to raise with you now, which was the murder of Charlie Kirk, which I describe as a profound, disturbing event that raises serious questions about America's future. We've fallen into this trap of the normalization, Eric, of political violence, which I respectfully submit that's the road to anarchy. And who was Charlie Kirk? You don't have to agree with everything he said. You don't have to agree with anything he said. But the idea that you normalize political assassinations, and that's just okay because somebody disagrees with you or has a different point of view. Charlie Kirk had some very strong views, but he was always willing to debate those views. And he always said, discussion and debate avoids violence. We do not want to have violence in the streets. We do not want the left shooting at the right or the right shooting at the left and the middle being shot at because they don't subscribe to any of the crazy tendencies of the extreme leftists or extreme rightists. That's the whole problem. When the center folds, then you have anarchy. And this is very, very dangerous. So you didn't have to like Charlie Kirk and agree with everything, but this normalization of violence and this appeasement of, well, it's okay because I disagreed with him and he was dangerous. First of all, he believed in traditional marriage. What a terrible thing. What an awful thing. Terrible thing. Normal marriage, raise kids. He also believed that there were two sexes. Well, with all due respect to everybody, and I understand there's some people who need and believe they need transition surgery, but that shouldn't be done by kids who've been brainwashed. Let it be done when they're more adults and they can make an adult decision on it. Don't make it the new current thing to do and be endorsed and block parents from having a say or knowledge about what the kid is doing when they're transitioning, because it may just be a phase. It may be a psychological imbalance. I don't know. Maybe it's the right thing to do for an individual. And if that's the right thing to do, that's a different discussion. But it shouldn't be an economic commodity by doctors and hospitals to make money on the deal. And it should not be a political statement when other people say, take your time, slow down, let's take a hard look at this. So let's talk about the response, Eric, to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Let's talk about Late Show talk host Jimmy Kimmel. What are your thoughts?
Well, I know a lot of people have been coming out. I mean, I saw the alleged joke that Kimmel told. It was really quite offensive. I'll let people Google it.
But it was more than a joke. It was more to say. No, he had a statement which he fundamentally said he's taking issue with the people that the so-called motivation or the mindset of this kid came from the far radical, indoctrinated left, and it was really the product of conservatives and Republicans. That was what he's
right. Well,
okay. That's what he was taking.
Right. But it led up to what in mind was a joke. It was offensive. I've never found Jimmy Kimmel funny. I've never found him entertaining. I don't particularly care for the guy, so I don't like his politics. That's true of most of the late night stuff. But I will say he has every right to be an offensive moron. That's his right as an American.
He has a constitutional right to be a moron. That's correct.
Yes. Now, what people need to remember about the First Amendment, it says Congress shall make no law. So that means that the government can't prevent you from speaking.
That's exactly right.
But so now he's been taken off the air, not by the government, but by what is he on? TBS, NBC, ABC. He's been taken off the air by Disney, who owns ABC. They made a corporate decision. They made a corporate governance decision to take him off the air. Maybe they found it offensive. Maybe they thought it would offend their viewership. Maybe they thought it would offend their promoters. Whatever it was, that was their decision. This is not a First Amendment issue. However, I will say this. To the extent that anybody in the government at the FCC, for instance, puts pressure on a company to take someone off the air, threatening they'll sue, whatever, I don't support that. I don't think that should be done. But the fact that it was ABC that took him off the air, it is not a First Amendment issue. Now, I find it quite rich, though, of all the people, predominantly on the left, of course, who are decrying this. This shows we have no First Amendment, and Trump's an autocrat, going back, of course, to the name calling that they all agreed supposedly that they were going to stop doing. This is the same group of people that would argue that speech is violence. So we need to control speech. Of course, speech is not violence. Speech is speech. And if you don't like my speech or someone else's speech, the way you defeat bad speech is with better speech. You persuade people otherwise.
Eric, I have to break in because I have some breaking news which is related to what you're talking about.
Okay.
This just broke. It's in the Daily Mail from the United Kingdom. This is the header. Israel-hating man, 22, sports ponytail, has his plot to assassinate Republican governors revealed. And the Republican governor is a former United States Senator from New Hampshire, Kelly Ayotte, a very lovely, smart person. And he's against her politics on all kinds of policies, but he's a big, big anti-Israel conspiracy theory opponent. Total supporter of intifada and violence against the Jewish community and for the destruction of Israel. And because Ayotte spoke out in support of Israel and the Jewish community, he wants to kill her. That's the breaking news, Eric.
Yeah, well, what's remarkable about that is Kelly Ayotte is a centrist.
Right, exactly.
She's not some right-wing MAGA person. She's a centrist. And what that tells you, it tells us so many things. But for the left, being pro-Israel makes you persona non grata. That's part of the problem, going back to what we were talking about before, the death of the Democratic Party. It's now the Democratic Socialist of America Party. In order to advance in politics in the Democratic Party now, it is a litmus test that you must be anti-Israel and anti-Semitic. Otherwise, you can't get nominated. And so that's why there's this huge schism now. But this idea that he would go after Ayotte, who's a true centrist and whose crime is that she supports Israel, is really quite remarkable. But just coming back to what we were just talking about before, about the left, their hair's on fire because Kimmel was fired. Their hair was on fire when Colbert was fired. But they don't tell you that as it relates to Colbert, CBS was losing $50 million a year. But somehow, even though they were losing $50 million a year, CBS was supposedly obligated to continue to keep them on the air. It has nothing to do with this politics. It was a strictly financial decision. And ABC and Disney, for whatever reason, decided to take Kimmel off the air. But I was watching, just happened last night, I was watching CNN, and Chuck Schumer comes on. And they're asking Chuck Schumer about what's going on in the First Amendment and Kimmel. You can't make this stuff up. So Schumer, of course, this is a First Amendment problem. Schumer obviously doesn't know anything about the First Amendment because it's not a First Amendment issue. It's a corporate decision issue.
Exactly right.
But this is the same Chuck Schumer that while there were protests at Columbia that didn't just chant from the river to the sea, global intifada, they physically intimidated and attacked Jews.
Which, by the way, is a federal crime. It's a federal crime to do that.
Federal crime. They prevented Jews from going to class. They violated every rule at Columbia in terms of reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions on protests. And Chuck Schumer was nowhere to be found. He didn't give a rat's ass, pardon the expression, for the First Amendment. He didn't care a whit about the Jews that were being attacked and intimidated. This has nothing to do with First Amendment rights. Because if he cared about First Amendment rights, he wouldn't have left it to Speaker Johnson and Congressman Mike Lawler and Congresswoman Virginia Fox to go to Columbia to tell them to cut this crap out. He would have gone. But he is too cowardly. He is too craven. Because on the left, as I said before, in order to be a Democrat now, you cannot support Israel. You cannot speak out against anti-Semitism. In fact, it's good for your career if you speak in favor of anti-Semitism, if you speak in favor of attacking Israel and denying its right to exist. So I find it quite interesting that Chuck Schumer all of a sudden is being asked to opine about the right to free speech. And keep in mind, of course, going back to the Obama days on the left, cancel culture was all the rage. If you didn't like what someone said about race relations or about the economy or about Obamacare, you were a bigot. You were a racist. You were a xenophobe.
So what that meant was you lost your speak. You were not allowed to speak at the cost of your job and your career. Well, but those were the high water mark, because now they just want to kill you.
Yeah. That is why Mamdani. I'll just come back to this for a second. That is why Mamdani is so dangerous, because Mamdani is not a traditional kind of politician. You know, I was talking to a friend of mine earlier today. We were saying, I wonder if the Democrats could reorient, like 1972 and McGovern. There's a difference. George McGovern, whether you agreed with him or not, I couldn't think of a thing I could agree with him. He was, was a normal American, normal human being. He ran for office. But the Democrats after 72 said, what do we have to do to win? That's not Mamdani's calculation. He's not the traditional, he's not a Democrat, but he's also not a traditional politician. He's an ideologue. For him, socialism, communism, and anti-Semitism are a religion. And if these things are a religion, you can't be talked out of believing in God. It's like asking a Christian not to believe in Jesus. It's like asking a Jew not to believe that Moses went up on Mount Sinai. These are core values that you cannot deny if you're going to say that you're a Christian or you're a Jew, or tell a Muslim that Allah isn't God and Muhammad isn't his prophet. For Mamdani, anti-Semitism, socialism, and communism are part of his religion. So there's going to be no compromise with this guy. Now, I happen to think that makes him evil. Others may have a different view. But that's why Mamdani's different. And that's why this sellout by Democrats to the DSA is so dangerous. Because now you're dealing with evil as opposed to just political hacks.
Eric?
And it's very scary.
Eric, I want to thank you for a great show. It's always a pleasure being with you. We miss our good friend Jesse Garcia. Hopefully we'll have him back next week. You wanted to say something about the forthcoming Jewish holiday of Rosh Hashanah. Right. So Rosh Hashanah, the New Year is coming Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I want to wish all our listeners who observe the holiday a Shana Tova, a happy, sweet, and prosperous and safe and secure New Year. And we'll see you next week. This has been Let the Record Show. Thank you for listening. As always, God bless you. God bless your families. And, of course, God bless America. We'll be back with you next week on Let the Record Show.
Thanks for listening to Let the Record Show with Judge Weinberg, Chairman Jesse Garcia, and Eric Levine. You can hear Let the Record Show Sunday mornings at 6. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder, what the heck is going on here?
This Sunday is the Tunnel to Towers Foundation Walk Run, and our team is in need of your support. Right now, every dollar counts. The WABC hosts must all rally their loyal audience to participate. Go to WABCRadio.com/walk and help your favorite hosts right here at WABC and support the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Go to WABCRadio.com/walk. Help WABC raise money for the amazing Tunnel to Towers Foundation Walk Run. Go to WABCRadio.com/walk.